This is my Central Machinery 12 by 36 inch wood lathe. I got it at Harbor Freight about 10 years ago. It's item number 34706, but don't bother looking it up on their website because unfortunately they don't sell it anymore. I got it for around $200 with a coupon. It went up to about $400 before they discontinued it. Now they sell a Bauer MIDI lathe, which seems to actually be a really good tool. I know Harbor Freight doesn't have a great reputation when it comes to power tools. I actually have a bunch of power tools from Harbor Freight, and pretty much all of them, except maybe one or two, have been really good. This one has been great. This lathe appears to be pretty much an exact clone of the King CH900C, and the Axminster CCL, and the Jet 1236. Now, as good a tool as this has been for me, it does have a few drawbacks. First of all, it is slightly underpowered at 1 horsepower. I've turned up to about 11-inch bowls on this, and that's worked okay, but anything more than about 9 or 10 inches is iffy. But recently, I've noticed a problem. The lathe has begun to squeak. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the problem is. I'm afraid it might be a bad bearing on the spindle. I think when bearings go bad, they're supposed to sort of grind and crunch, so I'm really hoping that's not the problem. But I've never changed the drive belt. Like I said, I've had it for about 10 years or so, and the drive belt is the original one that came with it, so maybe that's the problem? There's another thing that I've noticed too. When I try to run it on the slowest speed, it will sometimes slip up to the next speed. I'm not sure what the problem is, but I think it's somewhere in here, so I'm going to open it up and find out. The first step is to remove the hand wheel. This lathe didn't come with a hand wheel, so I had to actually make this one. You can buy one from Jet for about $65, but I made this from a scrap of, I think, cherry and a piece of aluminum stock. Of course, this isn't a common threading. This is a 1/2 by 12 left-handed British Standard Whitworth threading, so I actually had to buy the die for this, but still wasn't difficult to make. Next, there are 4 screws that need to be removed to remove the housing. And the last one is down here. And here's what it looks like on the inside. And yep, it's in pretty desperate need of some cleaning. I moved the lathe to the very edge of the garage, and I'm going to use compressed air to blow all of this dust towards the outside. If you don't have access to the outdoors, I do not recommend you do this. Use a vacuum. Alright, that looks a lot better. I'm inspecting the belt and I don't see any cracks or obvious signs of wear, but it does look old. It's a 3L240 belt, so I actually ordered one already. So let's get that changed out. Alright, first I need to remove the old belt. To do that, I'm going to put that on its fastest setting and it should just slip off. There you go. This is called a Reeves drive. As the 2 halves of the pulley are moved closer together, the belt starts riding closer and closer to the edge of the pulley, effectively making the pulley size larger. That slows the lathe down through a process called magic, I think. Alright, so let's spin the lathe and see if the spindle bearings are the problem. No, they are nice and quiet. Alright, good. That's a huge relief. The spindle bearings, there are 2 of them. There's one here and then there's one over here. Removing those is a huge pain, so I am very happy it's not the spindle bearings. But that means the squeak is coming from somewhere else. And I think I found the problem. It might be hard to hear over the crows in the background, but it's actually coming from the motor spindle. While I'm here, I may as well clean out the motor housing here. There are 3 screws to remove, one here, and one back here. Well, that last screw was in a really awkward spot, so I had to use one of these angle attachments on my power screwdriver to get it out. When I listen carefully as I'm spinning it, it sounds like the squeak is coming from this side. So I'm going to try taking the fan off to see if I can get further access there. There's a snap ring here that I need to remove. So I'll use these snap ring pliers and see if I can get that snap ring off. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be that easy. By the way, I should have mentioned it earlier. Make sure your power tools are unplugged when you're working on them. I think there is a little set screw up here. So let me see if that will release it. Not so little a set screw. Well, that didn't do it either. But now I don't hear it squeaking. That's interesting. All right, just for fun, let's try putting that set screw back in and see if the squeaking comes back. Yes, it does. I'm trying to be very careful removing this because this is a discontinued lathe, and so finding parts for it would not be easy. If I break the fan, then I'm in trouble. Well, I have been woefully unsuccessful at getting the fan off, but I think that the squeak is coming from this interface of these parts right here. Now, I know nothing about motors. I don't know what those pieces are called, but I think those two pieces are rubbing against each other and causing the squeak. All right, I don't know if this is absolutely the wrong thing to do, and I may be destroying my lathe here, but I'm going to use this dry lube, PTFE, to try to lubricate those parts. All right, let's work that in. Look at that. No more squeak. I can't believe that actually worked. Of course, I haven't plugged it in yet to see if the motor still runs, but I'm pretty sure it's going to. I'm not sponsored by WD-40, obviously, but I'm going to put this snap ring back on before I lose it. All right, that thing is spinning beautifully now. All right, I moved the lathe back inside the shop because it's November and it's finally getting chilly out. This is the new belt, I think. All right, let's get that installed. There are lots of different belts you can buy. There's rubber, there are link belts. I got one that's Kevlar because why not? It's, Kevlar. It only costs about $7. Link belts cost about $28. I don't use this lathe enough to justify paying 4 times as much for a link belt. Installing the new belt should just be the reverse of taking the old one off. Prying this one apart, and now hopefully this will just slip on as I rotate, like so. All right, before putting the cover back on, let's just make sure it works. All right, that looks great, so I'll just put this back on and that'll be it. The lathe is all clean, it's got a new drive belt, and no more squeak. I'm really happy it wasn't the spindle bearings that were the problems. Those are a bear to replace. I'll leave links in the description for both the drive belt and the dry lube that I used. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. Thank you very much. See you next time.